Possibly is the gunman, the policeman, that most likely will end up with an empty judgment. Two other possible defendants being the Filipino government or the police department.
He estimated that a case such as this could take up to a year to resolve. Kenneth Fung, TVB News.
And a number of major political parties will stage a joint rally on Sunday to protest against the botched rescue operation in the Philippines. The march will start at 3 p.m. at Victoria Park and end at Chater Garden. Members of the Democratic Party, Civic Party, and Democratic Alliance for the Betterment and Progress of Hong Kong will all take part in the rally. Security personnel will be deployed on the day to make sure protesters do not clash with Filipino workers along the way. The Filipino Migrant Workers Union will hold a separate candlelight vigil at Chater Garden on Sunday night to remember those who perished in the ordeal. Meanwhile, the government says around 38,000 people signed condolence books at 18 condolence points throughout the territory. Those centers were open for 3 days until yesterday for people to mourn the victims of the hostage crisis.
Philippine police say their initial investigations indicate the bus hijacker shot dead all 8 Hong Kong victims. Further tests will be conducted to verify the findings. Philippines authorities have examined 59 spent bullet shells recovered from the Hong Tai travel bus and concluded that they all came from the M16 rifle the gunman Rolando Mendoza was carrying. They found only one spent case from a 9mm pistol used by the SWAT team on the day, and that was lodged in the ceiling of the bus. Police say they believe all the gunshot wounds sustained by the 8 slain Hong Kong tourists were either from the M16 rifle or a .45 caliber pistol the gunman was carrying. But investigators admitted that some of the bullets recovered from the bodies were just small fragments, and further ballistic examinations will be conducted to try to confirm the findings. When asked if the 8 bullets that killed the gunman came from the SWAT team or snipers outside the bus, a Philippine National Police spokesman remarked that he could say so with a degree of certainty. Philippines authorities have admitted that a police special action force was on standby near the scene as a team of local officers bungled the rescue operation on Monday. Manila Police Chief Rodolfo Mactibe admitted in a Senate hearing that the SWAT team was poorly equipped and it was the first time they had attempted to rescue hostages using a sledgehammer. The officers had no experience in dealing with tempered glass. The arrest of the gunman's brother that night is widely seen as the turning point in the negotiation because it made the gunman angry. Mactibe said Manila's mayor, Alfredo Lim, ordered the arrest, but Lim denied that and accused the police of failing to handle the crisis. The bullet-ridden bus, meanwhile, is now being stored in a warehouse under special conditions to preserve any evidence. It will undergo what's being described as an air crash investigation to establish what happened inside during the night of the shooting. But that may take months or even a year. The tragedy, meanwhile, is taking a toll on the tourism industry in the Philippines. Philippines Airlines said more than 500 people from Hong Kong and the mainland have cancelled bookings up until the end of August. In other news, former U.S. President Jimmy Carter flew out of North Korea on a private jet today after securing a special pardon for an American who had been jailed in the communist country since January. Carter and 31-year-old Eidolon Gomes, who embraced on the tarmac, are expected to arrive in Boston later today to be reunited with Gomes' mother and other family members. Carter was also reported to have had open-hearted discussions about North Korea's nuclear program during his brief visit to Pyongyang. In April, North Korean authorities sentenced Gomes to 8 years of hard labor and fined him more than $600,000 for trespassing and committing a hostile act. Gomes had entered North Korea from China. Last month, he reportedly tried to kill himself and was hospitalized.
And footage has surfaced apparently confirming that North Korean leader Kim Jong-il is in China. The video appears to show Kim leaving a hotel in Jilin City this morning. A convoy of 30 cars later left the hotel, apparently headed toward Changchun, an hour's drive away. The highway between the cities in China's northeast was also blocked briefly, and security had reportedly been increased around a government guest house in Changchun. This would be Kim's second trip to the mainland in 3 months. South Korean media and regional analysts are speculating that he may be seeking Chinese economic aid and also support from his closest diplomatic ally for the succession of his son, Kim Jong-un, who may be accompanying him.
3 terror suspects have been arrested in Canada for allegedly plotting to blow up targets in Canada and abroad.
Somebody else gets me frustrated.
One of them, 28-year-old Dr. Kurim Said Shah, auditioned in the 2008 for the Canadian Idol reality show. He was detained along with 30-year-old Hiva Alijay and 26-year-old Hisbahuddin Ahmed. Canadian police allege the men had plans to make improvised explosive devices. Bomb-making instructions and circuit boards were seized inside this home in Ottawa. Police would not elaborate on their terror plans, but said their plot ranged from Canada to Iran, Afghanistan, Dubai and Pakistan.
New York authorities say they believe an attack on a Muslim cab driver was an isolated incident. 43-year-old Bangladeshi immigrant Ahmed Sharif sustained wounds to his neck, face and shoulders by a passenger who is now in custody. There had been speculation the attack was related to the controversy over the building of a mosque near the site of the 2001 terror attacks. James LaGilia reports.
New York Mayor Michael Bloomberg once again tried to ease tensions after a Muslim cab driver was attacked. Although officials don't believe the incident is connected to plans to build a mosque and Islamic center near Ground Zero, Bloomberg did make a pointed connection to the debate about it.
This should never have happened. Hopefully it won't happen again. Hopefully people will understand that we can have a discourse. That's what the First Amendment is all about. That's what America is all about.
The Bangladeshi driver Ahmed Sharif said the proposed mosque and Islamic center did not come up in his conversation with the passenger, who allegedly used a folding knife to slash Sharif's neck and face after asking whether he was a Muslim.
The attack came from the back. It was a shock.
Meanwhile, investigators are trying to unravel contradictions in the life of the suspect, a baby-faced 21-year-old college student who had traveled to Afghanistan with a group that seeks to promote interfaith understanding. As part of the work, Michael Enright of Brewster, New York, spent time embedded with U.S. troops. Enright told police he had been drinking since 4 hours prior to his arrest. He remains jailed without bail on charges of attempted murder, assault, and weapons possession. Including the attack on Sharif, there have been 10 hate crimes reported against Muslims in New York so far this year, up from 6 last year. But by comparison, the top hate crime categories this year are 93 anti-Semitic, 36 anti-gay, and 23 anti-black incidents, according to police. James LaGilia, TVB News.
And coming up after the break, consultation to be held on evening traffic flow at Cross Harbour tunnels. 13-year-old...
The government will soon launch a public consultation on how to balance traffic flow on the territory's 3 Cross Harbour tunnels. One of the suggestions is to reduce the toll at the Eastern Harbour crossing while increasing charges at the Cross Harbour tunnel. Priscilla Ng reports.
Officials say the imbalance of traffic at the 3 Cross Harbour tunnels is a pressing issue that needs to be addressed. Sources say a government consultant has proposed a number of possible solutions. One of the options is to increase toll fees at the Cross Harbour tunnel while reducing charges at the Eastern Harbour crossing. Hong Wing Tat, an associate professor of civil and structural engineering at Polytechnic University, said this would only be workable if tolls at the Cross Harbour tunnel were increased to around $10 more than the Eastern Harbour crossing. Right now, it is $5 cheaper for private cars to use the Cross Harbour tunnel. Hong said motorists would need an incentive to drive a longer distance to use the less convenient Eastern Harbour crossing. But legislators oppose this idea, saying it would increase the financial burden of working drivers. Wang Xingqi from the Democratic Party said the ultimate solution to the problem is for the government to buy back the operating rights of the Western Harbor crossing. The Transport and Housing Bureau, meanwhile, stressed it is open to all suggestions. It will submit a consultant's report to the Legislative Council soon and launch a public consultation on the issue later this year. Priscilla Ng, TVB News.
A teenage girl who threatened her mother with knives after being asked to get off the phone has been put on probation for 2 years. The girl was said to have previously joined a triad gang. The 13-year-old defendant left the juvenile court in Chinwan with her parents after sentencing this morning. The court heard how she was on her mobile phone at home on the 12th of August. Her mother got angry and took away the phone. The girl then picked up 3 knives and threatened to kill her mother. The father tried to stop her and called the police. The girl broke down in tears in court and said she had a tough time in detention over the past couple of weeks without her parents by her side. She admitted she was lazy and unhelpful. Magistrate Lambert Lee asked her why she wanted to hurt her mother when she herself had been beaten up by the triads in the past and ended up in hospital. The teenager said she was unable to control her emotions at the time and promised she would never try to hurt her mother again. The magistrate then asked her why she quit the triad. She said she didn't want to be laughed at and didn't want to fall behind in school. In sentencing, the magistrate said the girl had pleaded guilty to criminal intimidation and knew she was wrong. She was placed on probation for 2 years and has to report back to court in 4 months' time about her progress. The Centre for Health Protection is warning teachers and parents to take extra precautions as local schools reopen next Wednesday for the new academic year. The centre is warning that Hong Kong is still in the peak period for outbreaks of influenza as well as hand, foot and mouth disease. Kenneth Fung reports.
This is the scene at many classrooms in schools across the territory as the new academic year draws nearer. Children's desks, chairs and cubby holes are all wiped down and disinfected. Classroom floors are given a clean sweep. The Centre for Health Protection, or CHP, warned today Hong Kong is still in its peak period for potential influenza outbreaks as well as hand, foot and mouth disease.
When schools reopen, we will receive reports of anything from 10 to 20 of influenza or hand, foot, mouth disease outbreaks every day. And we have already alerted the schools, the childcare centers concerned, to take special precautions against infectious disease outbreaks through liaison with the Education Bureau as well as Social Welfare Department.
The CHP says this year has been a record year for cases of hand, foot and mouth disease. And officials say outbreaks of the disease are likely to persist in the next few months. They're urging school children in particular to be especially careful once school starts. Also, a new pneumococcal vaccine will soon become available.
Earlier, we had a tender exercise, so we invited any interested vaccine suppliers to give us their offer. And it turns out that the 10-valent vaccine won the tender, and therefore we are switching to a new vaccine.
The new vaccine will be free of charge for infants and will be available at maternal and childcare centres in October. Kenneth Fung, TVB News.
British Airways has apologized to passengers after an emergency message warned passengers on a flight to Hong Kong that they were about to crash into the sea. The message was played by mistake. The automated message went out on a flight from London's Heathrow Airport to Hong Kong on Tuesday evening. The plane was flying over the North Sea at the time. Cabin crew quickly realized the error and moved to reassure the 275 terrified passengers on board. A spokesman for British Airways said an investigation was underway to discover whether it was human error or a computer glitch.
There's new insight tonight into the plight of the group of miners in Chile who have been trapped in an underground copper mine for more than 3 weeks. As Sonia Artero reports, some miners have produced a video showing just how well they're doing given the circumstances.
It is day 23 for the 33 miners who remain trapped under 800 meters of earth in what most might imagine are horrible conditions. But this video reveals otherwise. The grainy night vision images show the men standing, sitting around, lying down, and even playing games. They were so thrilled to receive a video recorder, they even broke out in song. No Knowing they might be there until Christmas, the men have everything organized, their first aid supplies, their rations, and assembled mats for rest. One telling sign that they aren't as comfortable as the video portrays is a close-up of a thermometer reading 29.5 degrees Celsius. While Chile's state-owned mining company continues to strategically drill the escape tunnel, lawyers are scrutinizing the dark underside of the country's questionable mining regulations and pushing for stricter enforcement of laws. All the while, those who cannot bear to be far from their trapped loved ones have pitched nearby tents, erecting shrines inside and holding vigils until the day that they could be reunited with the miners. Sonia Artero, TVB News.
So what do we have in sport, Jim?